Have you ever watched a story explode so quickly that it left even seasoned royal watchers speechless? That's precisely what's happening right now with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, a saga that has spiraled from rumor to full-scale media event in record time. It all began as whispers, buried deep in obscure blogs and private message groups. A handful of people insisted they'd seen clues that Meghan had never been pregnant with either of her children. Back then, the claims sounded absurd. But over time, those murmurs evolved into a roaring debate that has captured headlines worldwide. At the center of it all is one woman, known to the public only as DL, who has declared that she was not a peripheral figure but the gestational mother of Archie and Lilibet. And she's not making her claims anonymously anymore. She has stepped forward, named herself, and laid out a case she insists is backed by evidence. DL's story is a tangle of secrecy, contracts, and a promise she says was broken. According to her, she was recruited by a discreet California surrogacy agency in the final months of 2018. The arrangement was presented as ironclad and confidential. She would carry the Sussex children under medical supervision, compensated generously for her role, and never be acknowledged publicly. First, DL says she had no qualms. She understood the importance of privacy, especially for a family as visible as the British royals. But after Lilibet's birth, everything changed. She claims she was abruptly cut off. No medical support, no emotional follow-up, no contact at all. From that moment, she began collecting and organizing her records, correspondence, receipts, ultrasound documentation. In her mind, these files were a safeguard against the possibility she'd be erased completely. And now, she has chosen to step into the spotlight, alleging that Meghan and Harry orchestrated an elaborate deception to convince the world Meghan had given birth herself. For many people, this story sounds too far-fetched to be credible. But the sheer volume of detail in DL's account has given even skeptics pause. Let's rewind to some of the earliest signs that something wasn't quite right. When Meghan announced her first pregnancy in 2018, the public reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Felt like the royal family had a chance at a fresh start, a new generation to carry the institution forward. But then, eagle-eyed observers started noticing peculiarities. Meghan's baby bump appeared to fluctuate noticeably in size from one appearance to the next. In some videos, it looked almost rigid, like fabric stretched over a prop. In others, it seemed to shift in shape when she bent down. At the time, mainstream commentators dismissed the speculation as cruel. But now that DL has stepped forward, those same videos are resurfacing, racking up millions of views and fueling a renewed debate. And the questions didn't stop at the visuals. There was the matter of timing. Archie's arrival was announced on May 6, 2019. Yet, within hours, Meghan was reportedly home, smiling for the cameras without the faintest sign of exhaustion. Veteran royal correspondents, familiar with how previous royal births unfolded, quietly noted how unusual the sequence was. Kate Middleton had always appeared in public shortly after delivery, tired but present, flanked by photographers outside the hospital. By contrast, Meghan's introduction of her child was delayed and shrouded in privacy. At the time, supporters argued it was simply a personal choice. But to critics, it looked like a deliberate effort to avoid scrutiny. When DL's allegations hit the public sphere, they didn't land in a vacuum. They landed in an environment that was already suspicious. And that is perhaps why her story has taken on such a life of its own. According to DL, the agreement she signed included explicit guarantees. She would receive comprehensive care after delivery, and her confidentiality would be respected. She claims she upheld her side of the bargain, only to be left feeling abandoned once the children were born. In her telling, the decision to go public wasn't about revenge but about reclaiming her sense of agency. She felt she had been reduced to a nameless footnote in someone else's narrative, and she decided she would not remain silent forever. If there's any truth to her account, it would raise enormous questions about the children's legal status. Because in the monarchy, succession is not merely a ceremonial distinction. It is codified in law, most notably in the 1917 Letters Patent. That document stipulates that royal titles are reserved for children lawfully begotten of the body. That language may seem archaic, but it has never been replaced. And if it were proven that Meghan was not the biological mother, or that surrogacy was concealed, the implications could be seismic. Behind palace walls, advisors are said to be quietly gaming out worst-case scenarios. If DL's documentation emerges and withstands scrutiny, the Crown may face pressure to re-evaluate the children's place in the line of succession. Publicly, Buckingham Palace has not uttered a word. Privately, insiders say meetings have been convened to assess the risk. Meanwhile, the consequences for Harry and Meghan's broader brand could be just as devastating. Their entire post-royal career has been built on an image of authenticity. From their blockbuster Netflix specials to their high-profile interviews, they have portrayed themselves as victims of an outdated system, champions of honesty in a world of spin. But that image only works if the audience believes the story is true. DL's claims are corroborated, the fallout won't stop at hurt feelings. It will extend to the Sussexes' financial arrangements, reputations, and future opportunities. Take their relationship with Netflix. The streaming giant signed the couple to an estimated $100 million deal to produce documentaries, series, and other content. Cornerstone of that arrangement was the promise of genuine access to their lives. If it turns out that critical details about their children's births were omitted, Netflix could face questions from shareholders about whether they were misled. And then there's Spotify, a platform that famously walked away from its multi-million-dollar partnership with Harry and Meghan. At the time, Spotify cited lackluster output. But in retrospect, some industry observers are wondering if concerns about credibility played a role. Even Oprah Winfrey, whose interview with the couple was watched by more than 50 million people globally, has not weighed in. That silence has become one of the most discussed facets of this entire episode. If DL's evidence is ever publicly confirmed, it could be deeply embarrassing for Oprah, who positioned herself as a sympathetic but rigorous interviewer. Yet for all the scrutiny on the Sussexes, it's important to acknowledge what remains unknown. We still have not seen the documents DL claims to possess. We have no independent verification of her story. And Meghan and Harry have, at least for now, chosen not to respond. But it is precisely that vacuum of clarity that has allowed the speculation to spiral out of control. Supporters say the couple is wisely refusing to dignify an unverified narrative. Detractors argue that the refusal to address the claims is a tacit admission of guilt. And in that space between assertion and rebuttal, the story keeps growing. DL has announced her intention to sit for a major television interview, promising to show portions of her documentation. She has issued a public challenge that Meghan and Harry agree to an independent DNA test administered by a neutral lab. That demand has raised the stakes. If the Sussexes comply and the results confirm Meghan as the biological mother, the narrative collapses overnight. But their continued silence has become an accelerant, feeding the belief that they have something to hide. In the meantime, the palace has stuck to its time-tested playbook: say nothing and wait. But the modern media environment doesn't reward patience. It rewards constant updates, fresh revelations, and new angles. Every day without clarity feels to the public like confirmation that the worst suspicions might be true. For Harry and Meghan, this is an existential dilemma. Their critics see the saga as the ultimate exposure, a moment when a carefully cultivated image is revealed to be hollow. Their fans are left hoping that the truth, when it emerges, will vindicate the couple's decision to stay silent. Yet regardless of which side you're on, there is no denying that the stakes are colossal. If DL's evidence is credible, it could force Buckingham Palace into the kind of public reckoning it has avoided for centuries. Could compel Netflix to re-examine the Sussex documentaries. Could push publishers to reconsider future projects. And it could make sponsors think twice about associating with a brand now synonymous with controversy. And perhaps most unsettling of all, it could cement the belief that even the most high-profile figures are willing to bend the truth when it suits them. For two people who built their escape from the royal fold on the promise of honesty, that would be the ultimate irony. As the days tick by, one reality has become impossible to ignore. The public is no longer content to wait for official statements. They want evidence. They want transparency. They want to know whether this story is the scandal of the century or just another elaborate distraction. And until the questions are answered, speculation will thrive. Because in the end, this isn't just a story about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. It's a story about trust, about the fragility of reputation in the digital age, and about what happens when the silence grows so deafening that it becomes its own kind of confession. Curtain hasn't dropped yet, and no matter how this saga ends, the echoes will be felt for years to come. In the meantime, as the Sussexes maintain their public silence, a remarkable phenomenon has begun to unfold: the birth of an entire ecosystem of online investigators determined to piece together the truth. These aren't just professional journalists or royal biographers. They're ordinary people, some former fans, some lifelong skeptics, who have made it their mission to scrutinize every scrap of information. They trawl through archived video clips, scrutinize photographs frame by frame, and cross-reference travel records, hospital reports, and property logs. To an outsider, it might look obsessive, but to these self-appointed sleuths, it feels like public service. Because whether or not DL's allegations are proven, they tap into something larger, a widespread belief that powerful people often operate by a different set of rules. That institutions, from royal households to corporate media, will go to any lengths to protect their own. And that belief is what has transformed this story from a personal accusation into a cultural flashpoint. Even if the truth is eventually clarified, it's likely that the damage will be permanent. Because in the court of public opinion, perception has a way of hardening into reality. Once the seed of doubt is planted, it can be almost impossible to uproot. Consider how the Sussex brand was once positioned. Harry and Meghan weren't merely ex-royals, they were symbols of a new era. A couple who had the courage to break away from the institution, tell their truth, and build a future on their own terms. Their interviews were hailed as cultural milestones. Their Netflix series was billed as an unprecedented look behind the palace walls. Their podcasts were marketed as fresh, authentic reflections on love, loss, and resilience. And to millions of people, that message resonated deeply. But now, all of that is in jeopardy. Because the narrative of authenticity doesn't survive if people start to believe the storytellers are hiding something fundamental. And the more time passes without a clear response, the more that doubt calcifies. Some PR experts have suggested that Meghan and Harry are playing a long game, waiting until DL's story collapses under its own weight before stepping forward to deny it. But that strategy comes with enormous risk. Every day that passes without a rebuttal is another day when the public fills in the blanks for themselves. And as any seasoned observer of media culture will tell you, people's imaginations are rarely kind. Even if DL's claims are eventually debunked, the question will linger: why did it take so long to clear things up? That question alone can be as corrosive as any proven accusation. And it doesn't help that the Sussexes' public image has always been polarizing. For every person who sees them as brave truth-tellers, there is another who views them as opportunists who traded royal privilege for Hollywood deals. This controversy has given the latter camp all the ammunition they need. Meanwhile, the silence from Buckingham Palace has been almost as conspicuous. Historically, the royal family has taken the position that they never complain, never explain. But in this case, that approach is colliding with a modern reality. In the age of viral content, refusing to engage can sometimes look like tacit consent. Behind the scenes, royal advisors are reportedly grappling with an unprecedented dilemma. If they issue a statement condemning DL's claims, they risk fueling more headlines. But if they remain silent indefinitely, they risk appearing complicit in a cover-up, whether or not any wrongdoing occurred. And so, for now, the official response is a void. A silence so profound that it has become its own form of commentary. That void has allowed the story to metastasize, reaching corners of the internet that rarely pay attention to royal affairs. From YouTube channels dissecting body language to podcasts devoted to legal analysis, the speculation has become an industry unto itself. And with every passing week, more people are exposed to the idea that something about this story doesn't add up. Whether that perception is fair or not is almost beside the point. Because once a narrative catches fire, it is almost impossible to contain. DL's forthcoming interview is likely to be the tipping point. She has hinted that she will not only share portions of her documentation but also name specific individuals who were allegedly involved in coordinating the surrogacy. If that happens, it will set off a scramble to confirm or disprove her claims. Journalists will pore over the documents line by line. Lawyers will debate whether the NDAs she signed can be enforced. And social media will become a battleground of competing narratives. In that environment, even the most carefully crafted statement from Meghan and Harry may not be enough to restore trust. Because by the time they speak, the public will have spent months forming their own conclusions. And there is no guarantee those conclusions will be kind. Meanwhile, the collateral damage continues to spread. Business partners who once saw the Sussex brand as a beacon of progressive values are growing uneasy. Sponsors are quietly re-evaluating their associations. Charities that partnered with Archewell are bracing for difficult questions. Even former allies in the entertainment world are recalibrating their support. Some of the very same celebrities who once defended the couple are now keeping their distance. After all, no one wants to risk their own reputation by endorsing a narrative that may soon be disproven, or worse, confirmed as a deliberate deception. And that is perhaps the most striking consequence of all. Long before any evidence has been made public, the mere existence of DL's allegations has created a climate of uncertainty so toxic that it threatens to engulf everyone associated with the Sussexes. That's the peculiar power of a story like this. It doesn't have to be true to do lasting damage. All it has to do is feel plausible in a world that already suspects the powerful are not always honest. As this saga unfolds, one can't help but reflect on how different it could have been. Had Meghan and Harry addressed the claims head-on, either by providing irrefutable proof or by launching a legal challenge, the narrative might have been contained early. Instead, they have allowed the story to grow unchecked. And now it has become something much bigger than an accusation. It has become a referendum on their entire public persona. In that sense, DL's allegations have done something remarkable. They have forced even the couple's most devoted supporters to ask questions they never imagined they'd consider. Questions about transparency, about trust, about whether the Sussexes have been entirely forthcoming about the most significant moments of their lives. And perhaps that is the most damaging aspect of all. Because in an era defined by skepticism, any unanswered question becomes an indictment. Any refusal to engage becomes a confirmation. And any delay becomes an admission. For Meghan and Harry, the stakes could hardly be higher. If DL's claims collapse under scrutiny, the couple will almost certainly emerge wounded but intact. But if her evidence holds up, even in part, the fallout will be catastrophic. It would mean not only a personal humiliation but also a profound rupture in public trust. And for two people who have built their post-royal lives on the currency of credibility, that is a risk that could undo everything they have worked to build. As the clock ticks down to DL's televised appearance, the world is waiting. Waiting to see whether the documents she promises will materialize. Waiting to see whether the Sussexes will finally break their silence. Waiting to see whether the monarchy will be forced to confront a controversy unlike any in living memory. In the meantime, all we have is speculation, and the knowledge that whatever happens next, this story has already made history. Because no matter how it ends, it will be remembered as the moment when the world learned that even fairy tales have shadows, and that sometimes the silence between statements speaks louder than any denial ever could.